Good evening, good morning, and good day to everybody. Today I have a good friend and colleague, Dr. Jeremy Villani, who is a 1997 graduate of Parker College of Chiropractic in Texas. And we met at the Chiropractic Centennial in 1995 at Palmer Davenport. And we've been friends ever since. We have gone through many journeys. Okay. Hold it up again. Hold it up again, Jeremy. Tell us what that is.
That was back in 1995 at the Palmer Centennial celebration. I think that was our dual sucking piezoform.
Yeah. Excellent. We were both looking pretty fat then. And
yeah, had hair at least.
we not only discovered chiropractic, but we discovered the lifestyle that embodies well-being. And yes, chiropractic is not everything, but it certainly is a good starting point to discover all that surrounds the chiropractic lifestyle: the outdoors, light, love, friendship, and fitness, food, and everything. And here is Dr. Jeremy Villani. We're going to have a chat about all of the above. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. Pleasure to be here. Long time listener, first time caller.
And who more wise to have on the show than Jeremy? You served as the treasurer on the association, and we had dealings in the Australian Association when you were treasurer, and various other positions. So we have served our patients, and we've served our profession, and you have served greatly. And you've also served in a college capacity. So where do we start? Are you still at the college in New Zealand? College?
Yeah, yes, still do mentoring at the college. I'm contracted at the end of the year, mentoring at the college, which has been good. It's been a bit of an eye opener as well too. But always happy to serve the profession. I think it's something important that every chiropractor does, but maybe not like in hindsight. And I think you'd probably agree with me. I got into giving back to profession pretty early in my career, which I think was good, but also almost detrimental. Like, luckily, my wife was a chiropractor, and she was able to help out at the time too. But it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and focus away from your practice, and it's not just your hours you give in, but the financial stuff. It affects your practice financially, affects everything, and I definitely encourage people to give back to community and give back to the profession, but it still comes at a cost. But I think it's something we should all do. Yeah.
Speaking of cost, you've always had an interest in the financial aspects of chiropractic, and you've been a mentor to me in that respect. So has Mark Feldman and people like that, Dennis Richards. Do you have any comments to make about, before we dig into the philosophical stuff, what's your advice to young chiropractors, beginning chiropractors, about financial?
That's twofold, I guess. Firstly, I think when you and I graduated, most people were encouraged to start their own practice, and that's probably not quite the norm now. Most people come out of school and expect to associate, at least straight out of school, and maybe for quite some time. Where when we went to school, it was definitely encouraged to have your own practice, and though some would associate, but it was still the onus was on having your own practice and starting from scratch. And so a lot of people like ourselves who've been in practice a long time, and we've never necessarily associated much or worked for other people. Then when we hire young associates, there can be a bit of a disconnect with our expectations, and I think that's a tricky part. And that's something at the college, try to explain to the fourth years of the students that get ready to graduate, is that when you do come out and practice, be prepared to work. I think the best ability anyone could have is availability, because a lot of people come out with mixed ideas of I only want to work 20 hours a week and still make six figures or whatnot, but you need to be prepared to work for those sorts of things. But the chiropractors themselves need to be supportive of the young associates too. Because I think one of the biggest crimes in chiropractic is how a lot of chiropractors tend to eat their young. We don't sometimes always look at our young graduates that well. And it's, so if the expectations are met on both sides and people are, honest with each other and supportive, it can work well. Because a first year grad, let's be honest, I was terrible my first year out, and like every first year grad, it's a learning curve. You're going to cost the principal more money than you probably realize, and yet you still think you're being underpaid. So you have to have that sort of connection there. But for those who do go out into practice and, get their own practices further down the track, I think the key to that is, like, Jim Parker used to say, always practice where you want to be, practice where you love, practice where you want to be, where you're happiest, where you have your heart at. And you're going to be successful just on one of those facts just alone. If you're where you want to be, you're going to be successful. If you're serving the community you want to serve, you're going to be successful. But it should never be, you should never focus on a dollar amount. Like, don't focus on dollars as your goal. It should just be the amount of people you can serve. And if you're serving the people well, the universe does provide, money always comes. That's a byproduct of just doing a good job. But don't get bogged down into the minutia of, dollars and cents with every single patient. PVAs and dollar per visit averages, those are great for, doing once in a while as a statistics. But, just serve your people, as well as, like I said, be available, be prepared to work. I think a lot of young ones, they don't want to, they feel like they've spent 5 years at school or 8 years in America, and now's my time to kick back. It's like, no, now's your time to start working. And, you like put that effort in those first, probably 5-10 years. And then eventually, yes, over time, you can, mold your practice the way you want. But, and I know some practice coaches and some business coaches will disagree with me because they're always say, practice like you want, from day one. But unfortunately, when you're first starting out, you can't just work 15 hours a week and expect to have a growing practice. That's just reality.
And Jeremy, where do you think the philosophy of the practice mentality fits into success?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Since I've been in New Zealand, like I said, because I'm always learning too, but since I've been in New Zealand, are you familiar, Joe, with the paradigm 1, 2, and 3 that they talk about?
No.
Have you heard that expression? Yeah, it's something that's talked more about over here. Where paradigm 1 was chiropractic back in BJ's days and DD's days, where chiropractic cured everything. We cured everything. That was the first paradigm. And then the second paradigm is where we treat conditions, and the insurance companies come in. It's more what conditions we treat, what we can get paid for, what modalities we use to make money. That's sort of more the second paradigm, is more treating of condition, musculoskeletal, neuromusculoskeletal. And paradigm 3 is more sort of where I am, but where I'd like to see most chiropractors are. Paradigm 3 is, I'm not here as a chiropractor to, fix your woes. I'm here as a chiropractor to remove subluxation, let your body function as best it was meant to be, let it adapt as best to its ability, depending on, age and everything else. And just, just let your body do what it's meant to do. Just remove subluxation. And, and at the end of the day, you can agree that not having subluxation is better than being subluxated. That's basically paradigm 3. Remove subluxation and let the body do what it was meant to do. And that's, very simplistic, but it's also the heart of chiropractic, where if you focus on that aspect of just being a good chiropractor, find, remove subluxation, be excellent at your craft, be a good chiropractor, provide chiropractic, you're going to do very well, extremely well. We confuse the public in the way a lot of people do things, and a lot of that's their own fault. And I'm happy to go into that discussion a bit later, because there's layers to that one too. But I think if we more focused on, and I know subluxation, I'm talking, I'm over here in New Zealand right now, so I can use the word subluxation, but it's, whether you like the word subluxation or not, it's irrelevant. You can use nerve interference, whatever. But, the body is better off not being interfered with. It's simple as that. And if we can agree on that, I think you can do well.
So if somebody approaches you and says, subluxation is not in my concept of chiropractic,
yeah,
you think they can be, 1, chiropractors, 2, effective, 3, therapeutically beneficial, and 4, do you have common ground?
Yeah. Well, I think my next question would be, I said I'm not always hung up on the terminology. I personally like subluxation, but I would ask them. I said, well, do you believe in nerve interference? Like, can you believe in is there nerve interference? Um, if I would like to think most chiropractors can agree on the concept of nerve interference. Like, and if they can't agree on that, then I would be questioning, well, are you a chiropractor? I mean, what's, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with ways people get subluxated, ways people get, nerve irritation, because yes, it's not just physical, there's chemical, emotional components. I've always said, and I would wish this day would happen, but I don't think you and I will live long enough. But I would love the fact that one day in chiropractic, our only concern is technique, and how to remove subluxation or nerve interference. I wish that day that's our only concern as a profession, but that's not going to happen in our lifetime. So but if they can't agree on there's nerve interference, if they can't agree on the fact that there's if the central nervous system, if the brain body connection is not there, or it's being hampered or impinged or diminished, if they can't agree on that basic concept, well, then I don't know what they're doing as a chiropractor.
Can you define the nature of the nerve interference we deal with, as opposed to, nerve interference could be blocking my eyes with my hands. So what are we talking about when we talk about nerve interference?
Well, I think it's very simple. I think it's just, keep it simple. Once again, that's where chiropractic, we try to make a very simple concept more difficult than it needs to be. Nerve interference is spinal nerve interference. Spinal nerve, if the spinal nerves are being interfered with, if the brain body connection is being interfered, whether that's C1, C1, has direct correlation on the brainstem, things like that. It doesn't always have to be, a nerve root. I think, spinal cord irritation, nerve root irritation, and how that gets there is, like I say, there's many ways of that, but it's more on that spinal nerve, connection, that has to be
absolutely. I love that spine-centric answer, because that really is where it's at. Do you have any contrasts between Parker and New Zealand College? Without degrading anybody, but
I think
similarities.
I think all chiropractic schools, there's pluses and minuses, I think, with everything. Well, because remember now Parker, it's been a long time. Now it's Parker University, and I don't necessarily agree with that because, the chiropractic gets taken out of a lot of things. Like, you just drive around Australia and you look at, most chiropractic clinics, and very few of them have chiropractic in the name. It's the wellness center, the life center, and whatever. Some of them try to sound vitalistic, which is fine, but they still don't use the word chiropractic. I've been in a mixed company in Australia where I knew there was another chiropractor in the room, and when they introduce themselves, it's quite often where they say, oh, I'm an allied health practitioner, as opposed to being a chiropractor. So, the chiropractic, still needs to be in chiropractic. But as far as, Parker, I think when I was there, we had a good balance between academic. We had quite good academic people. Like Jim Parker is really good at getting people top of their fields. If you were a top embryologist or pathologist or neurologist, like, he would get you. You didn't have to be a chiropractor. You'd get these people come teach his school. So we had leaders in their field teaching us academics. We had 10 different techniques that we were taught. Like, we had Alfred States, who actually literally wrote the state's manual of diversified. We actually had the person who wrote the book on diversified teaches diversified. It was Jim Parker was really good at providing that as well as we had great speakers every week. We had Sigafus, Reggie Gold, we had Deepak Chopra, astronauts, athletes, politicians come speak to college every week, once a week for an hour. So and we had and you had access to Parker seminars twice a year too, where you could go. And I'll admit, this is one of my big regrets is I went to as many Parker seminars as I could, but I should have gone to all of them. Like most students, I fell into the trap of, I need to study, blah, blah, blah. In hindsight, I should have done every single one of them from go to woe, because once you graduate, those things cost a lot of money. So,
Parker was one of the few colleges that really took business seriously. That's what those seminars were, right?
Yeah. Well, you have to. business and sales is in every aspect of life, and it's in healthcare. Like, and whether healthcare people want to agree with that or not, but it's the truth. It's sales, and that's where I think that's where there's a massive disconnect, particularly in Australia, and it's even limited in New Zealand too. But where, like, how the restrictions in advertising, like, you can't have a Facebook testimony, review, or you can't have things like quote unquote testimonials, or any other business, they're promoting Google reviews, asking for Google reviews, put something in there, put something on Facebook. Where if we do that, we're censored. And that's, at the end of the day, most chiropractors are small businesses, if not all, that have practice. They're all small businesses, and other small businesses don't have these restrictions on them. And there's other health practitioners on the same boat too, podiatrists, optometrists, dentists, etc. Not everyone works in a big hospital or is on the public system. But back to Parker though, back to the university though. Like, I mean, Parker, we had quite heavily mixer orientated professors, and even our vice president was a big mixer. Like, I remember he taught our PT class, or that, he said, he was the last name was Stern. He's a New Yorker, and but he was very abrupt, and he was first lectures, banging on the desk, like, everyone listen up, what I'm about to tell you, this is how you're going to earn 2/3 of your income when you graduate, and it's all through modalities and whatnot, which I thought was a load of rubbish, because I'm thinking, like, just be a good chiropractor and you'll make plenty of money, and that is true, but the modalities were a big part of it, all that. So if you gravitated towards that and that spoke to you, you could go down that path at Parker. If being more philosophical, subluxation based, you could go down that path. So Parker gave you access to all those ways to explore. It wasn't as rigid where you look at something like Macquarie. Macquarie is very mechanistic, very well, they don't use subluxation. They're it is sad with some of the things that goes on Macquarie, but Macquarie produces some very philosophical graduates too.
I agree, because Palmer was the same. You had a rehab department, you had physiotherapeutics taught, and people back here in places like Macquarie thought, oh well, Palmer was all this airy fairy stuff, but it was and from what you're talking about Parker, they were more holistic in their approach. You could go through Palmer doing physiological therapeutics only if you wanted. No biggie. But
I mean, New Zealand's very vitalistic. It's subluxation based. They have a lot of good. The students are exposed to a lot of good foundations and a lot of good building blocks that they can use in their career. But just because you're exposed to it, just because it's there, doesn't mean you necessarily use it. Some of them don't even sometimes appreciate the things they're being exposed to. So you could. I don't necessarily agree with the best school. I don't really, like, you go to best school and still come out a drop kick. You go to worst school, still come out a fantastic chiropractor. So it's always down to the individual and what you make of it, and what you seek out. Like, there's, like, I'll share this, and this is not a dig at NZCC, but like, my son is studying at the college, and he's taken a liking to chiropractic philosophy, and he's checking out Green books and Reggie Gold and Sigafus and Strauss, and you name it, like Fred Barge, and he's taking everything out of the library he can. And it's quite interesting, because a lot of the books he takes out of the library, you look at when it was last checked out. Most times it's 3, 4, 5 years later. Like, the book hasn't been taken out of the library for 5 years. And these are some great philosophy books, like, fantastic philosophy books at a very philosophical school. So, like, just because you go to philosophical school doesn't mean necessarily everyone's going for it too. So it's what you make of it. And and that's something I like to tell the young chiros, and any chiro, is if you tell people your version of chiropractic, and I emphasize what your version is, if you believe chiropractic is purely just for pain relief and whatnot, and that's what you own, that's fine. Like, I'd rather people be getting adjusted as opposed to taking opioids or Panadol every day. Like, if that's your thing and you're really good at that, and that's how you see chiropractic, great. If you're more of a vitalistic chiropractor or wellness chiropractor, and that's how you practice, that's how you live, that you walk the talk, then practice like that. Just do what's natural to you. I know I'm digressing here. I remember when I met a young chiropractor who has quite a good practice now up in Hunter Valley, in north of Newcastle, or west of Newcastle, and he first time I ever met him, he said to me, he goes, "Oh, you're one of those wellness chiropractors." And I go, "Oh, okay, yeah." I go, "Yeah, I guess so." I said, "If you want to put that label on me, sure." And I go, "Why? What's it to? What's with the label?" And he goes, "Oh, well, it's a good way to make money. I get it. It makes sense. You know, it's a good way to make money. Like, but that's all he saw wellness as, was a good way to make money." And he's a graduate from, I think, RMIT. Back, so like he's an RMIT grad. And it was just like, but to them, wellness was just a way to make money. Oh, if you want to be a rich chiropractor, do wellness. That's not the reason you do wellness. I mean, like, you have to be congruent. If you believe, if you like getting adjusted every week, or whatever it is, or if you want to get adjusted the rest of your life, and you believe people can benefit from being adjusted the rest of your life, well, then practice like that. Practice how you preach. And that's where I come unstuck with some people is, I mean, and I'm not here to name names, but you know them too. There's plenty of wellness chiropractors out there who get adjusted once a year, and that's not congruent. Like, they're recommending treatment plans of 108 visits in a year, and if they get adjusted once a year themselves, like, that's just, eventually that comes undone. The universe does catch up, because people, the public's not stupid. They know who's genuine, who's not. And if you're not genuine, not sincere, you're never going to be successful. And that's one of the biggest rules. If you want to be successful, be sincere, be genuine. I'm very proud to, say that in my entire clinical career, my practice, I've been a straight chiropractor, from the standpoint, I adjust the spine, I remove subluxation. Like, I don't do modalities. If someone needs massage, acupuncture, cupping, whatever, I refer out. Dry needling. Like, there's plenty of people that do that stuff 1,000 times better than me. And I'm not saying, and there's validity in all those things, but they come to me for chiropractic. And where I've always done well is I've just provided the best chiropractic care I can. And people, see that, they appreciate that, and they're happy to pay for it. And that's as simple as that, where I'm not trying to pretend to be a physiotherapist or a podiatrist or a nutritionist or, whatever, and that's where I think we talked about this earlier is, we confuse the public. I've had a patient who came up from Sydney, and I adjusted her. I have a Thompson Zenith 440. I adjusted her, great adjustment, raised her up off the table, and she'd been seeing a chiropractor for 15 years regularly. And I'm like, oh, it's good. And I get up off the table, and she goes, "Oh, wow." She goes, "That was different." She's like, when are you going to adjust me? And I'm like, "I just adjusted you." And she goes, "But you haven't put any needles in my back." Like, she goes, "That's all the other guy ever did. That's chiropractic, right?" And I'm just like, what? Like, it was just because this other chiropractor was just practicing acupuncture, and she told me his name. I looked him up, and found him in Sydney, and pretty much that's what he does. It's a chiropractic / acupuncture clinic, but that's apparently all he does. And it's like, if you want to be an acupuncturist, great. Go study acupuncture, go do it properly, spend 5 years in China or wherever, to get a proper acupuncture degree. You don't just do a weekend course and, now say you're, an acupuncturist, so it's
makes me think of some of the upper cervical specific people. And well, I think Roy Sweat, he says to me, I had a patient who's been adjusted twice in 5 years. However, he's been checked 40 times, 20 times. And that's all. We want to categorize things, and it's a lot of the time it's the detail is missing, the language is missing.
And that's a fair point. Like I said, maybe you only need to get adjusted twice in 5 years, but you definitely should be getting checked quite regularly. Life is not easy. Like, nowadays with COVID and everything, everyone's stressed, anxiety. I mean, there's enough emotional traumas out there that can easily, subluxate or cause, your body to not adapt as well as it should. Everyone needs to be getting checked these days,
a lot of dizziness coming in lately with COVID. I wonder why.
Exactly. Well, it's just, and also that, people sitting in their homes, they're homebound, they're sitting in chairs, sitting on the sofa, inactivity, sedentary. There's chiropractic. There is so much we can do for people. And that's where, I do sometimes feel bad for some of the younger grads, or even some, I've met other chiropractors that have practiced longer than me that sometimes don't even have those comprehensions. But I always felt like I won the lottery when I got my DC. When I got my degree, I was like, sweet, like, I'm in control of my future. I'm doing something I love, and something that's going to benefit, my community, make people better. And, and you can get out of it whatever you want. Whatever you put in, you'll get out. It's not that hard. And you can have a very successful practice believe it or not, just being a chiropractor. You don't have to have a multidisciplinary practice. You don't have to have a massage therapist working in a clinic, at acupuncture. Like, all those things are great, but you don't necessarily need them under your roof. You don't need to color the water a bit. Yeah, exactly.
But Jeremy, you've always struck me, and I identify with this a little bit too, because you've always been, I think, you and I from day one, we knew, I think, what we were going to do. But give me an example of something that spun your life around in practice, because we all have those that really shifted you around for better or worse. Was there, some major turning points?
I think I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate coming out of school, once again, back to Parker. But I think these things are it's what you make of it. I think if you open your mind to possibilities, if you entertain certain ideas, like, I was one of those people who came out of school who, I wanted to adjust someone and have an arm grow back on someone who lost an arm. Like, I knew that was ridiculous, but in my mind, I still thought, man, that'd be cool if I adjusted someone who lost an arm and it comes back. Like, I've never I still hope maybe one day that'll happen. I'm still looking for that, I get amputees coming to the clinic. I still think I can bring that arm back, but there's nothing wrong with having that expectation, because it's not so much just chiropractic, it's just the human body. The human body always amazes me. It's an amazing thing still. It does some amazing recuperative things. I'm someone who does take x-rays, and we can talk about that in a little bit down the track too, but you do pre and post x-rays, and you see things down the track, man, the body changes. The body is an amazing adaptable thing. And I think a lot of times we sell it short. We think, you can only do this, only do that. But back to what you're saying though, like when I was in clinic, I was an upper cervical patient, because, we Parker taught upper cervical. So I had a toggle patient who is his mother. She was seeing me for headaches, and she was doing very well. She's getting good results. And it was just, I was just toggling, because you and I both know how important the C1 is. But for our listeners or your listeners, yes, there's a lot of power in just working on the C1. But I was toggling her. One day I got called to the office, to the front of the clinic, and I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting a patient. I'm like, this is weird. Okay. And I go out there, I go, oh, what am I here for? And she's like, oh, so-and-so's son is here. And I look out, and it's this huge monster of a man. It was like 6'5", 250 pounds, or 120 kilos, and I was just like, oh my God, like, who's this? So I walk out there, and he introduced himself as so-and-so's son, is my patient's son. I said, oh, okay. So I just took him out of the reception area. I'm like, I'll just duck him in a room. I don't want this confrontation going on in the reception at the clinic. And he's a big strapping man. I mean, he was like 18, 19 years old, but still big old Texan boy. They grow him big in Texas. And I take him in the room, and he just wanted to thank me for the work I've been doing with his mother. And I said, oh, what do you mean? He goes, well, she's feeling better. She's so much happier at home. And these things, I'm getting goosebumps even talking about this right now. And he said to me, she's not beating us anymore. She's not hitting me and my brothers and sisters. Like, wow. She's stopped beating us. And this is a big dude. Like, wow. But it's his mother. Like, so I'm sure she could, hit him with a belt or something, like, Wow. And I didn't quite appreciate that ripple effect we have when you adjust someone, and that, not only you're affecting their lives, but you can affect the people around them too. So by making their mom feel better, happier, less headaches, better quality of life, that was also providing better quality life for her 5 kids. Like, and you don't always appreciate those sorts of flow-on effects. And
that was in college, was it?
That was in college. That was when I was in my last year of school. But I just had I had a patient literally at the moment that came in, and he came in, of course, I got neck pain, this or that. But then the other thing was, he said, I'm not a happy person. I'm always angry. And that was one of his chief complaints. I'm angry a lot. And I said, okay, well, I said, as we get your nervous system working better, firing better, I said, things can happen. Your body is an amazing thing and can adapt and improve. Like, don't underestimate it. And he came in the other day, literally, Monday. He came in yesterday. He only had 6 visits with me. And he told me straight up, he goes, man, I'm feeling better. I'm not angry. I had a good weekend. Like, I'm not yelling at my friends, my girlfriend. Like, it's just wow. Like, yeah, it's cool. Like, and he's a young man too. He's only in university and stuff like that. But I've had people like that over time. and I'll share one more story because we're going to share a story because this was the other one that was quite impactful when I was in practice. Was I did have a young man come in. He was 32, had a wife, 2 young girls, and he had terminal brain cancer. And this comes back to what I was saying earlier. Like I did think, that I could get rid of his brain cancer, fix the brain, get rid of the tumor, get rid of cancer. And, so he came in for adjustments. I saw him all the way through his thing. He never missed a visit. He kept great because his main goal was to be able to build, he wanted to extend the house, build an extension on, make sure his wife and kids had everything they need, when he wasn't there. And I was sort of being a bit dismissive of that, thinking, okay, well, I'm here to fix the tumor. He just wants to be able to, be mobile, keep active. And I didn't quite appreciate the importance of that because it's still early in my career. And of course, he passed away. I was pretty devastated. I was thinking, oh man, I failed. I'm a failure. I was a bit hard on myself. And then like about a month later, after, because he died just before Christmas, and his wife came in just after Australia Day, end of January, and she just came to talk to me, and she just came to thank me. And she said, oh, Dean, she goes, he was himself all the way to the end. He never stopped. He was working on the house. He was playing with the girls. He was happy. He was active. He was himself all the way up to the day he died. And she goes, I would just want to thank you for that. And I go, what do you mean? Like, she goes, well, you help keep him active, help keep him functioning well, and I didn't really appreciate the impact of what we did on that regard, because I saw myself as a failure because he died. I'm thinking like, I should have fixed that brain tumor, but then it was realizing that, the impact of what we do, it's up to their body to do what they got to do, but we provide function, we provide life, quality of life, we let their innate express themselves. And that's hugely powerful. And yet as chiropractors, we diminish it all the time, or we don't keep ourselves open to it, that because we don't know we do that, and that's sort of a crux. I have a problem with our profession at the moment is that we do try to pigeonhole into what we can and can't do. And, and a lot of that's because we want to be dictated by insurance companies and third-party pay and whatnot, and we also want to be accepted. We want to be accepted by the other health fields. So we're happy to pigeonhole ourselves into, oh, well, we're good for musculoskeletal because the other professions will like us if we do this. Like I think chiropractic was the best when we were getting jailed, when they were getting jailed and practicing, medicine without a license, and this leads me into another discussion. It's like, you talk about my time at the college here, and it's not just here; it's everywhere. But like when you and I went to school, like because I chose to be a chiropractor. I was accepted medical school when I was in undergrad. I had my own back injury that put me into seeing the first time I ever seeing a chiropractor. The guy I saw was a mixer. Like he was a nice guy. He showed me around the clinic. I appreciate it, and I like chiropractic so much I changed my major and changed my direction to Parker. But nowadays, like back when we were in school, a lot of people either, if they didn't maybe get into medicine, they went chiropractic. Nowadays, people, if they're not getting into physio, they're going to chiropractic. Like chiropractic just keeps getting pushed down the ladder, like more and more. Yeah. And I would, just like I would wish chiropractic was more of a first choice for everyone, where even though being a last choice isn't a bad thing, because, I've always said that to other people, like it's not a bad thing being the last choice. And we can talk about that later too. But like, I just wish people, put chiropractic, like, I still see us on the par with the GP and that side of it, not just, I'm not here to compete or with the physios and whatnot. Like they have their points and their validity, but like, I sure wish we had people coming in our profession that, had higher aspirations and, oh, well, I didn't get into physiotherapy, so I'll try this chiropractic thing, because it just keeps breeding that cycle of people they're not going to always appreciate what they can and can't do. And they quite often have lecturers that don't grasp those concepts either, so I don't know. How do we fix that one, Joe? How do we fix that?
Well, that's the whole point. Maybe we don't fix anything. Exactly. Maybe we're at that interface between universal forces of chaos and destruction and innate order. And we chiropractors have kind of always existed on that interface, which is where, things happen. But in wrapping up, I know your son, and he's the finest lad, and Helen and yourself should be proud of him already. What are your wishes for his progress into the future, and your fears?
Yeah, Daniel doesn't impress. He's impressed me quite a bit because he's,
well, that's good.
Oh yeah. Oh wait. Oh, if you ask him, of course he'll say that I never tell him I'm proud of him or how much I love him and all that stuff.
Well, we're both Italian, so what? As Sebastian Maniscalco says, Italian families, we don't give praise; we put you down.
But I think chiropractors, one of the best attributes chiropractors can have is their ability to communicate. And I stand by that. And we can talk about this in another time too, but communication is huge in our profession. And you need to be able to communicate what we do, what we are, what we can do for people, help to explain, their bodies, the brain body connection. You need to be able to put it in terms that are relatable to people, that they can come home with, that they can understand. No sense in having esoteric and, all these, fancy title, big words that no one gets. It doesn't help. Where Daniel is already taking on to that communication side of things. He's he does community talks. He does screenings with some of the higher years. He does career days for the school. So I mean, he's already out there in the community talking chiropractic and getting his tick down, which is great. He's taken, he reads those philosophy books on his own. He just asked me once, who's my favorite chiropractic philosophers, and I told him a few things. So he went and grabbed those books and read the books, so he does that on his own. As far as he's going to be fine wherever he decides to settle down. And it comes back to what I said earlier: wherever he finds where his heart is, wherever he wants to be in practice, he'll be great wherever he is. And and it's just, he understands the importance of chiropractic because he grew up in a chiropractic family, a chiropractic household, and we never necessarily rammed any of that stuff down his throat. We just lived the life we lived, and we were true and congruent in what we did in the practice as well as we did at home. And now it's all sinking in with him. Now he's all realizing, oh, that's why mom said that, or oh, that's why dad does this. And he knows he's been adjusted regularly since birth. He's a very fit kid. He's, very, muscly and has a good appreciation for his body. And he's done well academically in school. I mean, he is, you talk about the limitation of matter or expression of innate. I mean, this is a kid that, he's a chiropractic baby. He's his body's at a really high level of expression. He's chiropractic in embodied. But as long as he's true, as long as he keeps true to what he does, he's going to be successful anywhere. But I mean, it's not so much for him, because I think no matter how much we're doomsayers in our profession, we like to think the sky's always falling, or one day we're going to wake up and we can't practice something. I mean, those aren't realities, but they're fears. But if you just practice what's in your heart, you love your patients that come through the door, you be a chiropractor, talk chiropractic, he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine, but I just wish, I wish our profession, I wish we have, 100 more, million more like him. I just wish we had more chiropractors that appreciate chiropractic. And I say this to some of the students. Sometimes I say, I think one of the biggest threats to chiropractic is chiropractors most of the time. And that's the thing that, we need to work on. We need to, as a profession, appreciate what we do, be proud of what we do. We provide a great service, we're a great part of our communities. And the people should have a drug-free, surgery-free option for healthcare, and also, get the most out of life. They're learn about, how your body functions, learn about, getting the most out of your body. And that's where chiropractors fit that space. We don't have to compete with other health professions. So they all have their little things. Our thing is brain body connection, nerves, spine, keep it simple. Don't confuse the public, keep it simple, and we'll all do well as a profession. There's plenty of work out there for everybody. But yeah, as far as Daniel, he'll do fine. And if he happens to watch this on your podcast and listen to it, great. but he knows I'm proud of him. And he's already developing into a fine young chiropractor, and I look forward to welcoming him into the profession in a few years. But yeah, it's him I'm not worried about. It's more I just wish other chiropractors got chiropractic, but that's it.
But it's true. I mean, I have come across some good young minds. like you said, we tend to be pessimistic. So I think that's a great way to wrap it up today, my friend. Any other thoughts you'd like to get across?
I think you need to have me back on so we can talk x-rays next time. The
yeah?
importance of x-rays, the importance of, because that is one of the things that separates us from the rest of our peers.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll have some sessions on x-ray, and we'll try and I'll try and get someone who's on the other side, so to speak. We'll try and get some points of view. That's a good idea. So we'll catch up with you soon, Dr. Jeremy, and I look forward to seeing you back in Australia sometime.
Yep, no worries then. Thank you, Dr. Joe.